Travis Wayne Goodsell. This is for those of you who are ex-Mormon or have left the church and don't consider yourself Mormon anymore. I typically do videos for Mormons as we have all been Mormon, and as we came to learn that the church is lying to us in whatever form or fashion caused you to leave. It's important that Mormons likewise learn that the church is lying to us, and in so doing, hopefully they will wisen up and leave the church rather than cling to the fear that it might be true and that Jesus is going to smite them down if they go apostate. And so we're supposed to be on the same team, right? You'd think, right? And so why is it, well, other than the obvious, that you guys are watching certain other popular ex-Mormon sites and avoiding me? Is it because I speak to Mormons and not ex-Mormons? But you've probably noticed that if you've been watching at least a few of my videos, that I'm talking about a completely different Mormonism than what you have believed as not being what is believed originally, which gets kind of confusing. And I'm hoping you understand that I've contributed to the evidence of how the church has been lying to us. For example, there are anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. An anachronism is an object or an event or a person of a known time placed into a different time period. And so, like tennis shoes among the Nephites, I'm sure you've heard about that Mormon teenage story series. Obviously, they didn't have tennis shoes among the Nephites, and so it's a time travel book, I'm guessing. Maybe it's a spiritual witness travel. But even that is an anachronism, because in my day, it was a still small voice. There was no such thing as a still small feeling. A spiritual witness was never used. A personal revelation was never used by the prophets. And so it's now an anachronism for any Mormon to assume that because they call it a spiritual witness, that Joseph Smith said it was a spiritual witness, or anybody previous to when it was first used. And so the contribution of the anachronism in the Book of Mormon that I provided for all of us is that of Abinadi. He is taken hostage, is a prisoner, tortured, sort of like me, by the church. And the priests come and try to catch him in a lie by asking him targeted questions. And he turns it back on them to say that they're not following the Ten Commandments from the Old Testament in Exodus. And he includes the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Oops. And you won't know this as an anachronism if you don't know the time period of when the Sabbath day became the Sabbath day. And that was by the Babylonians, who conquered Jerusalem in 600 BCE. So thus, Nephi, Lehi wouldn't have known anything about the Sabbath day, because the Babylonians hadn't, well, they sort of did. The Assyrians came in, chased Lehi, because you're calling it literal history, right? You're ex-Mormon, so obviously you don't. But this is the real history. Assyria comes in around 7-something BCE, takes the northern tribes and replaces them with Assyrians, who become the Samaritans, merged with the poor who were left behind. And then the Book of Mormon alludes to the fact that because Lehi is from Manasseh, that therefore his family were one of those who fled that Assyrian invasion down into the land of Judah and Jerusalem, because that's not their land. And so then when we get to 600 BCE, right before 11 years difference, Babylon comes in and conquers. And so they really wouldn't have forced an assimilation on them when they put Zedekiah on the throne. It was definitely when they took him captive into Babylon, at Ur of Babylon, not Babel. That's another anachronism. It's Beirut, Lebanon is the actual Babel, not Babylon of Ur. And so, anyway, the Babylonians created the seventh day because of the superstition of the number 7. I've also contributed with the identity of the author of the rewritten 116 pages. As I'm sure you know, it's not Joseph Smith, right? You know the fact that it was Sidney Rigdon who's the major author. Now, regardless of the debate, and it's weird because those who believe Sidney Rigdon is the major author create a scenario which is not based on anything else of fact. And it's weird because there's a Wikipedia page on it. And so I can understand why Sandra Tanner, who I went and saw that one day and did a video of, doesn't agree with that, because I don't either. But Sidney Rigdon is still, nonetheless, despite Sandra Tanner's denial, is the major author of the Book of Mormon, a major portion of it. But nobody can figure out the 116 pages, and that's me. It's Joseph Smith Sr. And we know this because of the linguistic analysis. That's a field of science by which we do research. And the church, of course, doesn't want us to do research because their whole system falls apart on them, as we all know. As one of the popular ex-Mormons did a video yesterday in which she talked about how the church doesn't want us to actually do research. And you all know it's ex-Molax, but I would hope that you guys would be spreading this information around. There was a brand new ex-Mormon a couple years back who found my channel and thought that I was defending the church because I was defending Joseph Smith. And he was going to mock me because he knew all of the ex-Mormon videos and was starting his own channel to rehash the same old arguments of misinformation about Joseph Smith. And so I had to help him understand I'm a critic, I'm on your side, and I was able to convince him that I actually knew more than what the other ex-Mormons are misinforming the public. And the major problem that I see with those of you who do channels who aren't going to watch me is that you are trusting in other authors as authoritative sources. Rough Stone Rolling, No Man Knows My History, A View of the Hebrews, etc., etc., etc. And you're not understanding how to do actual scientific research, or even to know, at least as far as to confirm if somebody's claims are accurate. And I've tried to teach you guys in several videos about having papers or word programs in which you have a separate one for people, places, events, and dates, so that when you come across a particular date, person, place, or event, that you recognize, wait a minute, that is in the same place, or the same time, or The people are related. And so you can make those factual connections. Because if you're just going off of somebody's claims, they don't have all of this set up. They're just making a claim here, and you don't make the connection. And so the other contribution that I've helped you guys with, or tried, as I'm being silenced, you guys are not utilizing my information, is that of Joseph Smith Sr. in Canandaigua, New York. That's why the Book of Mormon came to be. And if you do not understand, because you've perpetuating the misinformation about Joseph and his many visions that contradict each other, you need to pay attention. As Heber C. Kimball is one of those persons who shared an event at the same location with Joseph Smith Sr., but neither of them talk of the other. And it's those kinds of things that make you go, but also help you put the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's the big thing that we as ex-Mormons and even Mormons are supposed to be doing, because that's what the church doesn't want us to do. Right, Ex-Molex? I know, it's good to expose the church as telling us they don't want us to do research. It's another thing to actually know the research that they don't want us to find out. And that's what I expose. We all know they don't want us to do the research, but what is it that they don't want us to know? And I reveal that for you. And so I'm hoping that this video will get more attention and that you guys will begin to trust me. But I know that there's most of you who are upset with me because of a certain psychologist. And it's because he's brainwashed you, and you get mad at me, just like Mormons get mad at me when I expose the church for their crimes and corruption and lies. Because as a psychologist, they create a category box for you. You are those who left the church. And he specifically has a non-dichotomous categorization for you, not just the dichotomous categorization of those who left the church, in which you left the church for a specific reason. So we put you in that box. Abuse of LGBTQ, IAPO+, abuse of women, the misinformation about Joseph Smith that you left the church for, the tithing abuse, patriarchal abuse, etc., etc., etc. And by creating the categories, he's now name-called you and repeats it over and over again, and you believe it because you're not being bullied in a sense. You don't recognize the type of bullying telling you what to think and feel and believe. That's the bullying that he's doing by creating a category for you to put in. And by you accepting it, you then self-fulfill his self-fulfilling prophecy of you, so that you then go around and do videos perpetuating that same misinformation, and thus you have become what he had labeled you as. And it's wrong in the sense that he's the puppet master. He's not letting you hear the facts and then letting you decide. It's similar to the news. Both conservative and liberal media are doing this. It's where they want responses. They want people's reactions. They want to know feelings, and they're trying to trigger you to feel the same way and then get triggered to act in response. And so January 6th was a perfect example for the conservative side. But with the cop murder, assassination of the kid, the young man, is the side for the liberals. as they all want you to act in reforming police, when that's not the problem. The problem is if we looked at the facts, and then Bill Mayer had a little segment with the former police chief of Memphis, who illustrated it beautifully. I refer you to his YouTube channel for that little clip segment. But individual cases, don't generalize. And I see that as a big mistake in doing research in the church, is that you hear somebody, you believe it, and then you treat, as a psychologist does, the whole thing according to your category box. And so you don't listen to anybody else when they present you with facts, such as Sidney Rigdon's The Major Author, when you are stuck on Joseph Smith writing a fiction fraud to make money. Or Joseph Smith Sr. is the author of the rewritten 116 pages, when you think he was a drunken bum and not religious at all. You don't understand that the fact is that he was a Jewish Kabbalist, or mystic as it's also called. And that's a very religious thing. That's not something to throw under the bus just because it's not Christian. And that's what you also have to be careful of. Is Gerald and Sandra Tanner, as much as they're great for exposing original documents that expose the church as having lied to us, they put their Christian bias over the top of it, literally over the top of it. Mormonism, Shadow, and Reality. You can see the original document, and then you see their annotation all over it. You go, oh, guys, what are you doing? I don't want your religion. Stick with the facts. Just the facts, please. So, this is a little bit longer. I'm hoping YouTube's being nicer to me today. They weren't the last video I did. But, you don't want to get to the point that Mormons get, where you hate so much because of your category box that you've created for ex-Mormons, and me specifically, as I'm talking about, that you treat me with hostility, that you treat me with denial, treat me with ignoring, and refuse to listen to the facts and the evidence. And that's the danger on both sides, with the psychologists as well as the church. They're using that psychological manipulation on you. And whereas I'm trying to teach you how to find out the truth for yourself, I'm not forcing you to believe anything I say. In fact, you come to my channel because you chose to. I'm not going to your channel saying you must come to my channel. I'm telling you the truth. Or putting the thumbs down on your videos and stalking you and putting hate comments and death threats. I don't do that for any of you. Not ex-Mormons, not for Mormons even. I leave you guys alone. I am aware of Exmo Lex. I've subscribed to her because I'm interested in what her point of view is as a former Mormon. And I prefer it when she sticks to that, rather than presenting other things of which she knows nothing about, of church history, for example. But if she's able to find documents and present them, if she's finding talks and quotes, and if she's telling about her experiences growing up Mormon, great. That's the same thing with Sunday Jess. She's Mormon. She's been on a mission, and so her whole channel is dedicated to helping other girls with their mission experiences, as she does videos talking all about it. And so I like watching hers, even though, I'm kind of concerned because she's apparently unaware that the inverted pentagram is for Lucifer. But it's fun to watch. So I understand the contributions that I've made, as well as other plagiarisms that have been incorporated in the Book of Mormon. I've added several of those, including not just Jewish mystical texts that have been included. There's been others that I found, as well as other passages from the Bible that I've not seen anybody else recognize coming from the Bible. So I have contributed, believe it or not. I do know what I'm talking about. I am an anthropologist of the ancient Middle East because of the church, because of Joseph Smith. And that led me to learning about the truth. And as I learned how to find out truth, I'm able to go into church history, which is an unrelated field, obviously, but because of the techniques and the lessons, I'm able to apply it to anything in life. So it really would be helpful to pay attention. I want more attention.